everybody, and welcome back to Robert's Reviews. Today is Friday, which means I go through a couple new releases, as many as I can in the time that I have. And there were two that stood out that I could watch today. I wanted to watch The Courier and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, but I don't have a movie theater nearby, so I'm forced to watch things that can be downloaded or rented, I should say, on video on demand or on a streaming service. And today there are two, being Happily and the one that I'm doing right now. Next week I should have four. Next week's gonna be a big one. I believe I have a break from D&D that day, so I'm gonna try to get through four new releases in one day, so that way you guys can enjoy more new release content because you guys really seem to like it. But today, let's go ahead and jump right into talking about Phobias. Phobias was released in 2021 and it was written and directed by Camilla Bell, Mariette Lego, Joe Sill, Jess Varley, and Chris Von Hoffman. So the way that this movie worked, okay, there were like five parts. Yeah, five parts. Each part was written and directed by one of those people, which I don't know why that had to happen. Let's talk about that first. Why? Why did that have to happen? Why didn't just one person write the whole thing? I don't know. And it's interesting that they chose to do that because, like, I think in each individual part is pretty good, but as a whole, this movie does not work. And this is a spoiler-free review, so there will be no spoilers here, so you can feel safe watching the rest of this video. I don't know how to feel about it, okay? Because when you go into it, you think it's going to be about a movie because based on the trailer, you think it's going to be a movie where the government is weaponizing fear, and they're trying to figure out how it's happening and stuff like that, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. So I was pretty excited about it. And then I watched the movie. And while there are elements where it does talk about the fact that they're weaponizing fear, that is not the main part of the film. The actual main part of the film is just going through five different people's fears. That's it. There's like a minute in the end where like they really quickly explain something, and there's a part in the beginning where they really quickly explain something, and that's supposed to like tie it together through this one man's experience, which is a really cool concept. It really is. Like, the idea that we can make a movie about weaponizing fear is exciting and really, really cool. I love the idea. But this just did not do it. And I think that a lot of that had to do with the runtime of like an hour and 25 minutes, which I was like, yes. Like yesterday, I just watched a 4 hour movie, and today I get to, chillax with 2 hour and a half long movies. And this one needed to be longer. It needed to be closer to 2 hours. That way we could have maybe discussed the narrative of what the government is doing and how they're doing it and why they're doing it, instead of just like, oh, this person over here, what's her fear? Let's go into that for a bit, and then get off of it, and then never come back to it at all. They do that 5 times, and that's the entire movie. And like, it doesn't help that some of them are cooler than others, right? Like, there's this one. I guess this is kind of a slight spoiler, but it's really not. There's this one where she cuts herself open and then kills people, and then takes their body parts and stitches it onto herself. That's a pretty cool one. I like that one a lot. That was a lot of fun to watch. Then there were other ones that weren't very good, like the one where this person was just scared of this ghost that would appear in her car. Like, it's a cool concept, but it just didn't hit as well as the other ones did. And it didn't help that none of them were connected in any way, shape, or form. There was no connection between them. There just wasn't, which is a problem. This reminds me of something that I really like. In case you guys haven't heard of it, Black Mirror on Netflix is a great show where they delve into these kind of things. We're like, okay, what would happen if this guy had a friend, but his friend is the internet? Like, what would happen? And there's a part of that in here that I really liked, where we had these really interesting stories that are basically futuristic, but then they're just not connected at all. These could have been five separate movies where we could have delved deeper into them, and the backstories of why they have that specific fear and not a different one would have been really cool. But instead, they gave us one compilation movie that didn't quite hit the mark, in my opinion. That being said, there are some really cool parts of this movie. Like, I loved the last fear we went through. It was really, really cool and really in depth. There was one that actually brought in some backstory to make some sense into what was going on. And, like, there's a couple really cool things that I think are really good for the thriller and the horror genre. But that's kind of it. And I think genre fans are going to love this. There's going to be people who are like, Phobias is a great movie because they only care about thrillers. You know, they don't care about the narrative of said thriller. They just want there to be more thrillers, which not my problem. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I have no problem with that as long as you are aware that there is no narrative. That's fine. It's same way with like Mad Max. I think Mad Max is a great movie, but it's only for people who love action movies. Like people who love action movies are like, this is my favorite action movie. But for me, I like a strong, driven narrative, and that just didn't have it. It also didn't help that the special effects were subpar. Most of them were. There were a couple special effects I was like, hey, that actually looks pretty cool. Like, there's like this lightning thing that's really cool looking. I'm like, hey, I like that. Give me more of that. But the fire that they had a few times in this film, not very good fire. Um, which I suppose I can't really fault because this is probably a low budget film. But I still have to hold it into account that it really just wasn't very good. I'm only going to talk about a couple of the actors, mainly because they're the only two that were in the entire film, at least most of the film. No actors in the whole film because it's really not connected at all. But first, we'll talk about Leonardo Nam as Johnny. I liked him. I liked him a lot. I think it was smart to have him be the first character because his thing is, not really spoilery, but he just gets bullied and stuff, so you feel bad for him, which is good. You want to start out with a character we can feel for that way, we are connected. We have an emotional connection with the character. If you started off with the one at the end where you're like, wow, this person's kind of a monster, it'd be hard to connect with them in an emotional way. So I think having this guy first was really smart, and Leonardo Nam was great. I actually really liked him in this. I'm a little upset that they gave him this crappy writing to work with, but I did like the performance, and Ross Partridge as Dr. Wright. So he's like the mad scientist who's like, I can canister fear and stuff like that. And I thought he was okay. I actually kind of thought he made it maybe it was a little over the top, but maybe he thought he was supposed to be over the top. I don't know. It didn't really work for me. Maybe it worked for others. I don't know. I didn't particularly like it. So while this film wasn't great, I think it's a good idea, and it spawns other ideas, like other questions. Like for me, I'm sitting here at the end of this movie, and I'm like, okay, that was cool, but what if, right? What if they decided to use like love instead? What if they could canister love, and would that work? Would that be a viable way to spread love, and would it solve problems? I don't know. It's just something that I thought about at the end of the movie. I was like, well, why do they choose fear and not something a little bit more lighthearted and fun? So I thought that was kind of interesting at very least. But the movie overall, it's interesting. It's got interesting parts. The sub things were really fun. I like the partialness, portions. Um, but as a whole movie, it did not work. It was not focused. It was very all over the place. And for that reason, I'm going to have to give Phobias a C plus. I watched this on Fandango now. $7 to rent it on HD or regular. I watch in HD. I'm going to be watching Happily after I release this one. So if you guys are interested in watching me review that, stay tuned because it'll be out soon. It's about an hour and a half long, and it takes about a half an hour to film, edit, and upload. Probably a little bit longer because I'm doing it in the middle of the day where my upload speeds are a little slower. I should be getting my new computer sometime very soon, so hopefully my upload speeds will be quicker. I believe they will be because I'll have way more RAM. So that'll be nice. It'll make it so I can produce more content faster for you guys and make it so I can maybe even do a little bit more, even though I'm kind of already head over heels doing a lot. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you guys are subscribing, it's a huge help. We're really growing, like literally by the day we get subscribers. And it really is a blessing. I'm having a great time doing this. And I'm gonna go rent and watch Happily, which you can rent on Fandango now. Not sponsored. That's going to do it for me today. As always, keep watching movies and television, stay educated, and I'll see you guys in the next video.